Dobrý den. Koukám, že už jste tady všichni, takže začínáme. In this video I'm going to tell you about the prefix v or ve. As you might know, I always separate the functions of these prefixes into different categories. But what I'm going to say next is probably going to shock you. This particular prefix actually has only one function. Can you believe it? Because I didn't. Yes, the prefix v or the vocalized version ve indeed has only one main function. Can you guess what that function is? Well, when you look at this as a preposition, that will give you the biggest hint. The preposition v or ve means, yes, you guessed it right. V means inside or in. Imagine a box, for example. Something is inside. And the prefix is very similar, except it involves movement. You're going in or into. So, believe it or not, this is our only category. I'm going to introduce 11 different verbs with this prefix, and I'm going to introduce them in pairs. They're perfective and imperfective versions if both of them exist. And I'll give you examples for most of the perfective ones. This is to remind you that the verbs with the prefix are not always perfective. They frequently are imperfective too. So this would be our movement into something. And let's start with the first one, vejít. When you look at this base, jít means to go on foot. Yes. And vejít is to walk in. Only speaking about walking, not by any means of transport. It can also be translated as enter, but I'm not going to use it here because you will see in a second why. Let me give you an example with the woman called Kateřina, Katka, because tomorrow is her name day, the 25th of November. So imagine Katka. She goes to high school and she just changed her haircut. She looks stunning. And it's gonna be the first time she goes to school with this new haircut. And then she walks into the classroom and everybody looks at her and stops talking. Když Katka vešla do třídy, všichni zmrkli. When Katka walked into the classroom, everybody fell silent. Když Katka vešla do třídy, všichni zmrkli. Now let me give you an example with its imperfective counterpart. Vcházet, to be walking in, or something that we can also use in present tense. We could tell the story just a slightly differently. Když Katka vcházela do třídy, všichni zmrkli. When Katka was walking into the classroom, everybody fell silent. It's the same situation, but with this verb you are actually saying that this was something happening for some longer time. You're describing this action as it was happening. Když vcházela, as she was walking in. Když vešla, when she walked in. And now the verb vstoupit. Vstoupit means to enter, on foot. We have two verbs. Vejít means to walk in. Vstoupit means to enter on foot. Sometimes they are interchangeable, except vstoupit is more formal, as walk in versus enter. Remember, these both mean that we are walking. These are footprints. We could say almost the same sentence. Katka vstoupila do třídy a všichni se na ní dívali s otevřenou pusou. Katka entered the classroom and everybody was looking at her with their mouths open. Katka vstoupila. You could say the same with vstupovat, of course. I told you that this verb is more formal. So if somebody knocks on the door in an office, for example, vstupte, come on in, enter, vstupte. And maybe you would know this word, this noun, vstup. Vstup means entrance. And from this we have vchod. That's also entrance. How else can you enter a place? We can drive in by car, by bus, anything with wheels, on a bicycle. And that's why we have the verb vjet. Jet plus vjet, to drive in, to ride in, to go in a vehicle. Vjeli jsme do slepé ulice. We drove into a dead-end street. Vjeli jsme do slepé ulice. Or you can also use this idiomatic expression if somebody is acting all crazy, has an unexpected reaction, angry, furious reaction, for instance. You can ask, co to do tebe vjelo? What got into you? What drove into you? We're talking about this strange, unexpected emotion that got into you so quickly that it felt like it was moving on wheels. Co to do tebe vjelo? Imperfective form would be vjíždět. How else can you get in somewhere? You can go in by climbing or crawling. That is vlézt. Lézt is to crawl or climb, and vlézt is to climb in. For example, a cat crawls into a little box. Kočka vlezla do krabice. A cat climbed into the box. Kočka vlezla do krabice. Vlézat is the imperfective form. This is our next batch. Remember, these are perfective verbs. These are imperfective counterparts. Vrazit means a more aggressive movement. It's to bump into something, to thrust, or bumped into somebody. Vrazil do mě a ani se neomluvil. He bumped into me and didn't even apologize. Vrazil do mě. And the imperfective form is vrážet. So for example, do všech vráží. But vrazit also has another fun meaning, and that is a very informal way of saying to add something somewhere, to put something somewhere. Like when you cook and you are feeling very empowered, or maybe because you don't care so much, you're like putting things inside the bowl like this. With this movement, you're like shoving things inside. Well, it doesn't have to be a bad thing. Like I said, it can be with enthusiasm. Let me play this little scene from a Czech fairy tale, Byl jednou jeden král.
Vrazil jsi tam kvasnice?
Co jsem?
Jestli jsi tam vrazil kvasnice,
Nevrazil.
tak je tam vraž. Vraž je tam, jak vrazím se. Přiměřeně. Přiměřeně.
So you saw for yourself. Vrazil jsi tam kvasnice. Did you add yeast in there? Tak je tam vraž. That would be the imperative. Vraž je tam. Put them there. Shove them there. Vložit. This means to insert or deposit or even paste. Like copy and paste in Czech is kopírovat a vložit. Vložit text. To insert a text and also to paste whatever you copied. Vložím nějaké peníze na účet. I'll deposit some money into my account. Vložím peníze. But it could also be literally to put something in, like put your money in the envelope. It would be the same verb. Vložit peníze do obálky. The imperfective form would be vkládat. Now we are moving into a more metaphoric meaning. Vžít se. Would you be able to guess what this means? Žít is to live. Vžít se. It's to put yourself into somebody else's situation or simply a different situation. To empathize, to identify yourself, like an actor with a new role, for instance. If you want somebody to empathize with you and understand your situation, you can say vžij se do mé situace. Put yourself in my place. But what we say in Czech is put yourself into my situation, not my place. Vžij se do mé situace. And if this was repeated, then we could say vžívat se. Like the actor would do this over and over with every new role. Vžívá se do rolí. How else can we get inside? By engraving. Vrít se, or it doesn't have to have the se. Rít is to engrave. And vrít se is to get engraved. It could be literally to actually engrave a title into some kind of material, but we also like to use it as a metaphoric meaning. Something engraved in your memory. Tohle se mi vrylo do paměti. This got engraved in my memory. This is a really nice sentence. Tohle se mi vrylo do paměti. Something memorable, whether it's good or bad. The imperfective form is vrývat se. And then we have this interesting verb vsugerovat, or vsugerovat si. I added it here because we use it quite often. This comes from the noun sugestce, a loan word, which in Czech means influencing, to influence something or somebody. Autosugestce a sugestce. A vsugerovat si, it means that you put something in your head. You influence yourself. You make yourself believe that something is true. or not true. For instance, think of this man Libor. Poor Libor. Libor si vsugeroval, že ho nikdo nemá rád. Libor made himself believe that nobody liked him. Libor si vsugeroval. We often say this. Vsugeroval si to. On si to vsugeroval. Ona si to vsugerovala. He made himself believe. She made herself believe. They all lived under the influence based on their own feelings, whether this is right or wrong. When you say vsugerovat si, it can often be a false impression. But it could also be, in a sense, fake it till you make it. Vsugerovat si něco dobrého. And if this happens constantly, repeatedly, you can also say vsugerovávat si. So this is if you yourself are doing it. If somebody else is influencing you, then you don't use the reflexive si. It could just be vsugerovat plus indirect object. Někdo to Liborovi vsugeroval. Somebody made Libor believe this. And our last three verbs, perfective and imperfective. Vloudit se. Vloudit se. Can you hear this interesting sound? Vloudit se is something very sneaky. To sneak in, to creep in, and to intrude. There is a very common phrase that we can say when we make a mistake and we want to say something like oops in English. Oop, I didn't mean it. But you want to kind of apologize for this. You can say chybička se vloudila. A chybička means a little mistake. Maybe a little insignificant mistake or a big mistake that you want to make some smaller. Vloudila se, sneaked in. In English, the best translation is oops. And in Czech, it literally means a little mistake sneaked in, creeped in. It doesn't have an imperfective version. Now let me play a very short fragment of a song in Czech. Let's see if you can recognize the original. What you heard in the song was chybička se vloudí. Chybička se vloudí means everybody makes mistakes. It literally means a little mistake will sneak in every once in a while. What can you do? These are very cool sentences in Czech. Okay, time to wrap this up. Vdát se and vnutit se have a little bit more indirect meaning. Vdát se is something that has to do with the verb dát, which means to give. This means to marry. When a woman marries, not a man. The etymology of this verb comes from this tradition, that a woman would be given to the man, to her new husband, by her father. So the father gives the bride. For example, Katka from the beginning of our video, the one with the beautiful haircut, she eventually got married. Katka se vdala před rokem. Katka got married a year ago. Vdala se. Katka se vdala před rokem. The imperfective form is vdávat se. We can extend this sentence. Katka se vdala za Libora. She married Libor, who thought that nobody liked him. So it's a happy end. And our last pair is vnutit se and vnucovat se. Vnutit means to force somebody to do something or to force your opinions on somebody. There is a pressure and there is a little bit of aggression, but it's nothing physical. If somebody wants to force their own opinions on you and you don't want it, you can say nevnucuj mi svoje názory. Nevnucuj mi svoje názory. Don't force your opinions on me. And if you add se to the verb, then you force yourself into somebody else's favor. You ingratulate yourself. Or you simply force yourself somewhere where you not wanted. Prostě se tam vnutila. She simply ingratiated herself there. Dámy a pánové, a to je všechno. Máme hotovo. We are done. As usual, there is a worksheet to this video, but this time there are no exercises. So you can get your worksheet here with these sentences transcribed and a few extra examples. And this time it is free of charge. Mějte se krásně. Ahoj!